Muhammad is not the last messenger according to the Quran. Muslims have mistakenly believed that Muhammad was their last messenger. According to the Quran, it is crystal clear he was not. In the Quran, chapter 33, verse 40, Muhammad was not the father of any man among you. He was a messenger of God and the final prophet. God is fully aware of all things. You can see here, God did not call him the final messenger, and he is fully aware of that fact. But the Muslims get around this by claiming that every messenger is a prophet. But not every prophet is a messenger. So I checked if this is actually true in the Quran, and it turns out that that is not the case. In fact, according to the Quran, every prophet was a messenger, but not every messenger was a prophet. There were 3 messengers never named or hinted as prophets. Hud, Saleh, and Shuaib were only ever labeled as messengers. As you can see in these verses, they each proclaim, "I am an honest messenger." This is very important because we're looking for evidence that every messenger is a prophet to justify that Muhammad was also the last messenger. But the Quran is saying the opposite. So I decided to go another route. I asked myself the question, what is the difference between a messenger and a prophet? Does the Quran give us this information? It does, as long as you read it without any bias. The more I looked into it, the more surprised I became that the differences were clear and easy to understand. Their duties can be summed up in 2 verses. Chapter 2, verse 151. Blessings such as the sending of a messenger from among you to recite our revelations to you, purify you, teach you the scripture and wisdom, and to teach you what you never knew. And in the second verse in chapter 3, verse 81, God took a covenant from the prophets, saying, "I will give you the scripture and wisdom. Afterwards, a messenger will come to confirm all existing scriptures. You shall believe in him and support him." He said, "Do you agree with this and pledge to fulfill this covenant?" They said, "We agree." He said, "You have thus borne witness, and I bear witness along with you." As you can see from these 2 verses, the messengers have a list of duties. The first is to recite God's revelations, the second, to purify the believers, the third, to teach the scripture and wisdom, the fourth, to teach what the believers never knew, and the fifth, to confirm previous scriptures. As for the prophets, they had only one task: to receive the scripture and wisdom from God. Once received, the messengers disseminate it. And I know what you're thinking. Maybe this does not mean that only prophets receive scripture from God. But I checked the rest of the Quran, and it seems that only prophets are ever said to receive scripture from God. Check these verses out. Whom God gave him the scripture, wisdom, and prophethood. The ones to whom we have given the scripture, wisdom, and prophethood. He has given me the scripture and has appointed me a prophet. We have given the children of Israel the scripture, wisdom, and prophethood. I was shocked to see that there is not a single verse in the entire Quran that says the messengers were given scripture from God. Just the prophets, who by default had to act as messengers afterward. This also meant that a messenger did not require a new scripture from God to perform these duties. For example, it was possible Jesus' disciples could theoretically have become messengers of God who spread the gospel after Jesus' ascension. If we look at 381 again, you may find some more startling information. Look closely here. God took a covenant from the prophets before he tested humanity, and he did not specify which prophets. Reasonably, one would assume every prophet was part of the covenant, including Muhammad. And then note how it was not a prophet, but a messenger that comes after them and confirms the scriptures they had received. This makes sense because if it was a prophet that came afterward, he should be part of this covenant and cause an infinite loop of receiving scriptures and confirming them. Why can't a prophet confirm the scripture he received? Well, isn't that circular logic? If the person who received the scripture could confirm it, that defeats the purpose of confirmation, doesn't it? For example, in chapter 5, verse 46, subsequent to them, we sent Jesus, the son of Mary, confirming the previous scripture, the Torah. We gave him the gospel, containing guidance and light and confirming the previous scriptures, the Torah, and augmenting its guidance and light and to enlighten the righteous. Note how Jesus only confirms the Torah, not his own scripture, the gospel. Again, it would not make sense for the person receiving the scripture to confirm their own message. And this is why we have this example in 381 to showcase that the confirming messenger always comes after the receiving prophet. Why can't Muhammad be an exception to this rule? Couldn't he just be special enough to confirm his own scripture despite the illogical circumstances? God truly is fully aware of all things, and he was thorough enough to prevent this misunderstanding. He knew Muslims would claim that Muhammad was an exception, so God took away that possibility in chapter 33, verse 7. Recall that we took from the prophets their covenant, including you, Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, the son of Mary. We took from them a solemn pledge. What pledge did Muhammad make? Check 381. Afterwards, a messenger will come to confirm all existing scriptures. You shall believe in him and support him. He said, do you agree with this and pledge to fulfill this covenant? And there you have it, folks. The Quran rejects Muhammad as the last messenger. 3340 states he is not the final messenger. 2:151 and 381 show that not every messenger is a prophet. God gives 3 examples of messengers who were never called prophets. 381 showcases a covenant of the prophets who pledged to believe in the messenger after them, and 33:7 shows that Muhammad took part in this pledge. What is wrong with the Muslims? They claim that Muhammad was in prophecies within the Torah and the Bible, and yet they reject their own prophecies in their Quran. A warning to every Muslim out there who won't take heed of God's revelations. In chapter 40, verses 34 and 35, Joseph had come to you before that with clear revelations, but you continued to doubt his message. Then, when he died, you said, God will not send any other messenger after him. Note, he was the last messenger. God thus sends astray those who are transgressors, doubtful. They argue against God's revelations without any basis. This is a trait that is most abhorred by God and by those who believe. God thus seals the hearts of every arrogant tyrant. If you want to argue against your own scripture's revelations, be prepared to go astray. Also, note that your hadiths compiled by random people 2 centuries after the Prophet's death are not actually revelations from God. If you want to know why hadiths aren't revelations from God, stay tuned to my next video.